Good afternoon, all. Welcome to Africa Day, and welcome to the UBA Africa Conversations 2021, a virtual convening of global leaders as we discuss the emergence of a new Africa, Africa to the world. And welcome from the UBA, United Bank for Africa, Africa's global bank, a leading Pan-African financial institution present in 20 African countries, the UK, France, and the United States of America. With a track record of over 70 years, serving over 25 million customers around the world, UBA is transforming financial services across Africa and is committed to supporting individuals, small and medium-scale size enterprises, and large corporates. To all our viewers across the world tuning in to this session, we thank you for joining us this historic Africa Day celebration. This is the third edition of UBA Africa Conversations, where we bring together leaders to discuss the most pressing issues facing the African continent and its people, and particularly our young population. Today, we are bringing to you Africa's best. This extraordinary lineup of panelists have consistently advocated that the priority for Africa must be empowering our youth and ensuring the creation of jobs and economic opportunity even during very, very difficult times. Through the Tony Elumelu Foundation, the leading philanthropy empowering African entrepreneurs from all 54 African countries, we have seen how our young ones, despite COVID-19, have leveraged their talents, expertise, networks, and technology to create wealth and support the communities they live in. We must therefore ensure that the gains these young ones have made are not erased. We must create an enabling environment for our young entrepreneurs to succeed. And we must empower them to create the jobs that will lift the continent to prosperity. It gives me, therefore, great pleasure to introduce this group of emblematic role models, making our continent proud with their extraordinary achievements. My big brother, His Excellency, President Paul Kagame, the President of Rwanda. My sister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the first woman and African to be appointed as the Director General of the World Trade Organization. My good friend, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the World Health Organization. And my longtime friend, Mr. Makhtar Diop, the Managing Director and CEO of the International Finance Corporation, IFC. It is great to have you all here today. Africa, indeed, is extremely proud of you all. I must also congratulate Ngozi and Makhtar on their recent appointments tasked with two important global organizations dealing with trade liberalization, private sector development, and poverty reduction. And I congratulate Dr. Tedros for leading the world in the global fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. I look forward to a very interactive engagement today, and I encourage our audience from around the world to ask questions to our panelists throughout the conversation using the hashtags UBA Africa Conversations on all digital media platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We will begin with each panelist sharing very brief opening statements in this order before we kick off with specific questions. First, President Paul Kagame, then Dr. Tedros, followed by Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, and finally, Mr. Diop. And then after the panelists say their concise opening statement, we will continue. Let me therefore call on President Kagame to start.
Thank you, Tony, and greetings to you all. My sister Ngozi, brother Tedros, and my brother Makhtar. It's good to be with you and happy to have this discussion with you. I thank my friend Tony for organizing this occasion and for the invitation for us to come together to express our ideas and views. Africa has been hit hard by the COVID pandemic, and its economic and social effects are very clear. We are counting on our continent's resilience to see us through this crisis. Partnerships are also important. For example, we are working together as a continent with partners to build Africa's vaccine manufacturing capacity. But we can also learn from this shock to invest much more of our budgets in our national health systems. The private sector, of course, has a big role to play in this. This will not be the last global health crisis, and the next one should not catch Africa unprepared again, maybe as it did with the rest of the world. When we talk about the emergence of a new Africa, that means a continent that is confident in our ability to meet the needs of our people. So without much ado, I think I'm looking more forward to our discussions after this. But once again, I thank you for being invited to be part of this eminent group of African daughters and sons. So I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to continue, Tony, or I was waiting for... Can you hear me? I think you're on mute, Tony.
Tony, you're muted.
Yes. 1 minute, Dr. Tedros, please. 1 minute opening remark, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tony. And thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. And my greetings also to His Excellency President Kagame. Amakuru, my brother. And also to my sister, Dr. Ngozi, and my brother, Makhtar. Although Africa has not yet seen the same scale of devastation from the COVID-19 pandemic as some other regions, the impact has still been profound for lives, livelihoods, health systems, and economies. The poor and vulnerable are hit the hardest. Africa has not escaped COVID-19, and we cannot let down our guard. What's happening now in many other parts of the world can also happen in our continent. With the support of COVAX, as you know, 47 countries in the African continent have started vaccinating. However, the volumes of vaccines are nowhere near enough. So far, Africa has administered just over 25 million doses, or 1.5% of the global total. This is very tragic. WHO is working day in and day out to bring immediate solutions for the equitable distribution of vaccine doses. But it's clear that Africa cannot rely solely on imports of vaccines from the rest of the world. We must build that capacity, not only for COVID-19 vaccines, but for other vaccines and medical products. The cooperation of the private and public sectors will be essential in this effort. I know that this is an area that President Kagame feels very strongly about and is working towards, and he's taking concrete action. WHO is also working with the African Union to establish the African Medicines Agency, where we will continue our financial and technical support to establish the African Medicines Agency and to build a strong regulatory institution for Africa. More than anything else, the pandemic has demonstrated that health is not a luxury item or simply an outcome of development. It's a human right and a prerequisite for social and economic development. And thank you, Tony, and back to you. And I wish us a successful discussion.
Great. We'll come to talk about the vaccination of Africans and vis-a-vis our population. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, please.
Well, thank you so much, Tony, and my warm greetings to His Excellency, President Kagame, to my brother Tedros and Makhtar, and to you. It's good to follow right on behind Dr. Tedros. Today is Africa Day, and as we reflect on what it means, and we think from my own part that our youth is what we have. Youth is gold to us if we can mobilize our youth productively to try to recover from this pandemic. I'm very proud the continent has done so far in coming together. Our leaders really try to build a One Africa approach to this by building the vaccines acquisition group, by building the medical supplies platform, by bringing together the COVID-19 envoys, of which I was privileged to be one. So congratulations and supporting CDC. But if we are to recover sustainably from this crisis, we have to correct the vaccine inequity that is so evident in the world today. The fact that we have vaccinated so little of our population is not acceptable. The fact, as Dr. Tedros mentioned, that we import 99% of our vaccines and 90% of our pharmaceuticals is not acceptable. But going back to vaccines, the IMF just did an interesting study where they showed that if we spend $50 billion additional to vaccinate 40% of the world's population by 2021 and another up to 60% by 2022, we will be able to reverse this vaccine inequity, and the world can actually gain $9 trillion more by 2025. I mean, the numbers are staggering. Compare 50 billion to 9 trillion that we could make if we did this right. And because I'm a finance minister, we could collect an additional $1 trillion in taxes. This is something they've also talked about. So it's important for the world that Africa, that we reverse this vaccine inequity and Africa benefits from it. We cannot recover sustainably without it. So we have to fight for it, whether it's getting more vaccines in from outside production, whether it's manufacturing our own. And the WTO stands ready to do its bit to keep supply chains open for this manufacture. We had a meeting in which my brother Makhtar participated, in which we talked about how to finance this additional production that could be done in Africa. And Dr. Tedros was also there to lead us up. So let me end by saying that when we do this, not if, when we reverse this inequity, we'll be able to create the type of platform, the type of hope that we give our young entrepreneurs, epitomized by someone like Shola Akinlade, the founder of Paystack, who addressed presidents at the recent Paris Financing Africa Summit and showed the world that Africa and its youth can be part of the present, but also a very important part of the future. Thank you.
Well said, Dr. You're almost like leapfrogging the conversation. You call it vaccine inequity, and I call it vaccine nationalism. We'll talk about this extensively. And thanks for that interesting opening comments, as usual. You call yourself finance minister. That was your word before. That was your word before. Okay, let's hear Makhtar Diop, please.
My greetings and my warm greetings to His Excellency President Kagame. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, His Excellency, and with my brothers and sisters, Dr. Ngozi and Tedros. Tony, thank you very much for bringing us today, together. Today is Africa Day. Africa Day at a time of a crisis. So what it calls for us is resilience and face adversity. And there is something that when I had the opportunity to talk to President Kagame, that he always challenges us, is to say, the world is difficult, the work is difficult, but so what? We need to transform it. And I think this challenge is what brings us together. And I think that there is no fatality for the African continent. What other part of the world have been able to address in terms of adversity, in terms of resilience, the continent can do it and is doing it. Progress has been made in important element. We have now an opportunity to change the face of our continent. We have an opportunity to transform our continent. Transforming our continent means create jobs, we create growth. To create jobs and growth, you need to have a strong, medium scale enterprises, small scale companies, startup, employ the youth. We have an opportunity to do that. We can do that if we take advantage of what we have committed in doing, is to have free trade among us Africans. Today, we have an opportunity, the leaders have decided it, signed on it, to build now the value chain and the local value chain that is needed in Africa to be able to have more transformation in our continent. And it starts with the pharmaceutical and vaccine industry. Today, leaders have asked us to work on this, and we are working together. And we are lucky to have people who know the continent, which are a critical position to address it. My sister Ngozi is the one who is now pushing on intellectual property, who is trying to change the world and say, we need to have it. Tedros is leading the technical work in the world on health. On my side, I have small responsibility in helping the to finance the private sector internationally. Tony, you have the private sector in Africa, and we have our leader, President Kagame. So we are here in our hands, big responsibilities in contributing, in making this Africa Day a day where we make decisions and try to move forward and respond to the challenge that President Kagame is always putting before us. Let's change the situation before us.
Wow. Makhtar, thanks so much. You know, when I said earlier that we have today a gathering of the best in and of Africa, you can all see that. So let's get started with the interaction. President Kagame, I want to start with you. It is good to see you again since we last hosted you in 2019 at the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Forum, which held at the Transcorp Hilton Hotel in Abuja. Mr. President, my first question to you focuses on security and peace. These real threats to stability and growth across our continent require the attention of all. From the assassination in Chad to the Gulf conflict between Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan, to the rising extremism in Nigeria, growing issues of mercenaries in Libya, tensions in Tigray, as well as the intractable violence in the Sahel region, and more indeed. What are our African leaders doing to combat this rising insecurity in the continent, which threatens any prospects of sustained growth and widespread prosperity, which we need in Africa today? Mr. President.
Well, thank you. First of all, I wish we didn't have to ask the question as to what the African leaders are doing to stop the crisis going on across the continent, but rather ask ourselves what we should be doing or should have done to actually prevent them from happening in the first place. Because it's been decades since we have had crises of different kinds. I think the best thing African leaders and all Africans, and leaders, I don't mean just presidents, prime ministers, I mean leaders of many people in their own rights, including yourself as a business leader and the brothers and sisters on the panel who play leadership roles in different ways or have been doing so in the past. I think the main thing is for us in Africa to invest in one another, or at least thinking about one another's well-being, so that we do whatever it takes for us to create a stable and sustainable African continent. But the continued emergence and even spread of crises like these, conflicts, there are so many. I would have added Mozambique and then Central African Republic, and when you are settling down with one, there is another one coming up. I think we need to invest more time and more so resources, but mindsets as well, ourselves, to say we need peace in order for the very things we talk about. So we must put in place good politics. First, domestically, every nation, every country has many issues to deal with. And then you have other issues to deal with across countries. So we can't just switch off conflicts or crises unless we invest in addressing the root causes of these problems. And this is a hard task. It is a task that you don't carry out or achieve results thereof in a fortnight, but rather we need to really walk the talk as well, because we meet every time, whether it is at the AU summits or other sub-regional meetings, and leaders meet to address problems, but it keeps going around almost to where we started from, and we keep seeing more conflict. So I think we need to put a sense of urgency in this. We need to be a little bit more serious in doing things rather than just talking about things, because we have crisis, we have poverty that we need to address, we have this opportunity for growth across the continent with the youth, with the women, with building systems and institutions to help us overcome that. But we can't drop the ball right in the middle of it for smaller interests or benefits and forget about the continental. Now, for example, in place there is African continental free trade area that has been created. We must capitalize on that and benefit from it, so that we just don't have it in a name, but in real practice, we are not realizing the benefits of that. And we won't realize the benefits until countries work together in peace and have security and in stability. Then the whole thing is, we are doing very good things on one hand, then on the other, we just miss the opportunity of what those things would give us for our future. So it's a big challenge. Talking about it is simple. As you asked me the question, I can easily answer it, but I think we need to do more of the things that give us the results we want than just turn the whole thing into an academic exercise. So thank you very much for the question.
Dr. Kagame, I said Doctor. President Kagame, always very practical. I'll come back to you on that, because it's something that we need to fix in Africa as a key factor for the development of our continent, and we know you have a track record in that area. Now let's turn to Dr. Tedros. Again, my brother, the last time we physically saw each other was at the 2019 28 Melu Foundation Entrepreneurship Forum in Abuja also. It is indeed astonishing to think of how much the world has changed since then. With the development of the COVID vaccines, humanity sees a chance to curb the pandemic and return to a semblance of normalcy. However, the stampede for vaccines, as the stampede for vaccines increased, we are witnessing the rise of vaccine nationalism. Our sister, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, called it vaccine inequity. Africa, with a population of over 1.2 billion people, has less than 20 billion of its population vaccinated thus far. The question, how can we ensure fair and equitable access of the vaccine for all? Realize and noting what Dr. Okonjo-Iweala said, knowing her for her statistics, that by investing just $50 billion US dollars, we can get further wealth in the world of $9 trillion US dollars. And in fact, nation states can make $1 trillion US dollars from taxes alone. Dr. Tedros, I really admire you, proud of you, but I don't envy you sitting there at a time like this, but we know you're capable. Over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Tony. This is a very important question. And as you rightly said, the share that Africa got so far is only 1.5% of what's delivered. And it's insignificant. You can't even count. And this, the problem is, I think I have said it many times, it's vaccine nationalism. I even said yesterday during the assembly, it's very difficult to find any diplomatic word for this. We have to say it straight, and it's vaccine nationalism. And many are calling it even vaccine apartheid. I think that also represents it. So I think discussing candidly is very, very important. We need to have an honest discussion on this, and that's what we're trying to do from WHO side. Although it triggered some challenges when we started saying those words, but telling the truth is important in order to overcome the problem. And when we come to the solutions, I think the world should be, first of all, to end this pandemic, should agree on the importance of cooperation. There are three ways that countries can engage each other. It's cooperation, competition, and confrontation. For this pandemic, you cannot choose the two, the competition and confrontation. It's the only option is cooperation. Because it's a common enemy. And cooperation starts from sharing what's available. So we fight the common enemy everywhere. And when we say share, it's not charity. It's actually in the interest of the whole world, even in the interest of the developed countries who can share. They're better protected when they share than when they only try to protect their own people. So the immediate we're pushing now is sharing, and we have some good news, especially the past 2 weeks. US has announced the largest 80 million doses to share, and many other countries, France, New Zealand, Norway, have already announced. And Sweden, Denmark, I hope this will continue, and this will help us to address the critical challenges that we have now. Then we have the immediate and long term. For the immediate and long term, we need to increase the volume of vaccines we have, and for that the manufacturing will be key. And we have the CTAP for technology transfer. There is voluntary licensing that AstraZeneca had started. We are encouraging others to do. And then that could include intellectual property waiver. The US had already supported, and many countries are supporting. Yesterday, probably you heard during the assembly, the Prime Minister of Spain was very strong on that. So we should use all options we have, starting from voluntary licensing up to IP waiver, to make sure that there is enough production of vaccines to increase vaccine coverage in all countries. So this is what we're trying to do. We need to push around the same line, and we need all African countries also to support these initiatives. Of course, we see that. And that's why I said on the production, especially for the medium and long term, will be important. I commend what President Kagame had started. He already started some pretty practical steps for local production, and that will help. And European Union is also ready to support. And we need to speed up those initiatives in order to increase the production in the medium and long term and end the pandemic. Thank you, and back to you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros. Again, as I said earlier, what a time to be the Director General of the World Health Organization. We're proud of you. You're doing very well. Let's turn to our sister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, as head of the World Trade Organization, what are some of the immediate policy actions that must be taken by African countries to address the historic global trade imbalances, and catalyze economic growth on our continent?
Well, thank you very much, Tony. Before I answer that, let me just give a bit of a shout out to my brother, Dr. Tedros. You know, people don't know he created something called the ACT Accelerator. Maybe people know, in order to try to accelerate the access to vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. And also the COVAX facility, we were all there to create and design and get this working. And the whole purpose was to try and assure equity of access. And the idea was that the world should vaccinate 3% of the population who are frontline workers. And then another next 20% of vulnerable. And if everybody did that, we would have had access in an equitable fashion. But some countries decided to do otherwise and vaccinate everybody. And then we got into this situation with scarcity of supply and inequity. So we really need to commend him. I'm just following you to say we are proud of what he's doing. So coming to your question of, what do we need to do to catalyze recovery and economic growth? Let me just be quick. I think first and foremost is to solve the health problems that we have. And we've said enough about that. And so I don't go into that. But the next few actions we have to do is to see on the short-term economic policy side, how can we get more fiscal stimulus into our economies? The developed countries are recovering very fast because they've been able to implement massive amounts of fiscal stimulus. For the rich countries, 28% of GDP. For the emerging markets, 6.9%. And for poorer countries, just about 2%. So if we want to recover, this is why it's important, the whole discussion we're having on restructuring debt and giving African economies space, fiscal space, to breathe so that they can invest not only on the health side, but on the economic side. This is how we're going to recover. Now, the good news, all our presidents like President Kagame, they've been pushing for this issuance of new SDRs, the special drawing rights at the International Monetary Fund, and 650 billion has now been agreed. Africa will get 34 billion, but more may be allocated. We can use this to help implement more fiscal stimulus so that our economies can have the ability to recover. Of that, we should use some for liquidity for the private sector. You know that in rich countries, private sector has gotten access to credit and liquidity. Small and medium enterprises have been able to recover. So we need to do that too. Second, we need to look at how to revive the services sector. Many of our countries depend on tourism. Some of our countries depend on logistics like aviation in Ethiopia. How to get those industries revived using these resources is very important so we can get them going. So these are all in sort of in the short term. In the longer term, of course, or the medium term, we know we have to diversify our economies. We are too vulnerable to movements in commodity prices. You have seen it during this pandemic. The commodities we depend on have seen a lot of fluctuations, be it minerals or oil or gas, too much fluctuation. Actually, the countries that are doing better on the continent are those that have more diversified economies. So we need to do that in the longer term. And of course, take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area to specialize some of our countries in production, trade more with each other, and also trade more with the outside. Let me stop there. I think those are a few things we can do.
We hit the nail. I wanted to ask you a follow-on question. Talking about the AFCTA, with the newly Senate ratified by African presidents, what are your hopes and ambitions for this world's largest trade area? Not trading volume, but trade area. And would you advise African governments attempting to industrialize and build manufacturing capabilities to benefit on the immediate and long-term benefits of the AfCFTA. No better person to address it than yourself, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala.
Well, I really believe in it, and I'm proud that our presidents have done this. But to make it work, I think we need to do a few more things. There's still logistical issues that prevent us from benefiting. And I think some parts of the continent are doing a little bit better than others. You know, we still have lorries, lining up at borders, and we're looking for digital passports and things so that they can move easily. If you look at in East Africa, I think we can ask President Kagame, they're doing better, a little bit better there with movement and cross-border flows. We need to do that. We need to make it easier to move from goods from one part of the country to the other. That also means investment in infrastructure. But movement of people, we can also make it much easier. And I think we have this AU passport. I have one, and I'm very proud of it. The idea is that business people like yourself will eventually get one. Maybe you have one already. And then ordinary Africans will get one so we can move easily. If we want the continental free trade area to work, we must make goods, services, and people flow easily across borders. I'm very hopeful, really very hopeful. And lastly, we don't really have a choice. If we want to change the tenure of growth in Africa, if we want to rely more on ourselves and less on the outside, if we want to export more, to specialize more, to add value to our raw materials, we've got to make this free trade area work. And the WTO is expectant and waiting to support the continent to make this work.
Thank you very much. You hit the nail. You talked about the three most critical factors that we must address if we want to actually capitalize intra-Africa growth and free trading. One, the movement of goods, people, services. And I want to say, under services, payments, banking transactions, extremely important on the continent for movement of goods, money, and people, extremely important. I hope that under your tenure, working with great African leaders and the private sector will be able to start the journey to this. As you said, there's no two ways about it. We don't have any option. We must embrace and do this. We're ready.
Tony,
yes, your president. Go ahead, Mr. President. Go ahead.
I think let's make it more interactive. It's going to be. I 100% agree with what my sister Ngozi was saying, and especially technically, how things should be happening. There is something that is lacking or should be there for things to work the way she was mentioning. Leaders have to make it work. Politics we have to make it work. It's the political will. Because the free movement of people, the logistics part of it, and digitalizing the systems, that's the right way to go. That's the way to go. But how does it happen? Yeah, we still have this big elephant in the room, and that is the politics of it, the political will, the leaders to really put at the forefront the kind of politics that will make these things happen. And I think that's where we are stuck and we may continue to be stuck for a long time. I'm not sure how we deal with this, but, and I know it's a hard ask to tell us what, but I'm just sharing this as a sense of frustration, but also something that really needs urgent attention.
Sorry, I don't mean to prevent Makhtar from talking, but I just want to side with His Excellency and say, but Excellency, what I wanted to say on this is that we've succeeded in this. I want to come back again on this pandemic. Maybe my expectations were low, but I can't stop saying how proud I am about the way the continent has acted together, much more than any other one. So if we can do that with political will, why can't we also do this other even bigger thing that is going to make our economies work? Tell us what we have to do to help engender this political will. If we need to get out on the streets and march, let us know.
Mr. President, over to you. Now it's getting more interactive.
I still think we didn't do enough, even with that, what she has said. We should have done more. We were capable of doing more. I think we shouldn't just be satisfied with the little efforts we put here. No, we need to do more because we are capable of doing more. And we know the need for doing that is staggering. Given the numbers that Ngozi already stated to us, the numbers show how urgent it is. So anyway, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just expressing my frustration.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you for our conversation. Our audience are listening. You know, they of you, and they're excited about this kind of conversation going on. So, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala spoke about infrastructure. Now, let's go to Mr. Infrastructure. Let's go to Makhtar Diop. My brother, as the head of the global institution committed to strengthening the private sector in countries, in what ways is the IFC helping to build capacity of small, medium-scale enterprises and young entrepreneurs in Africa? And if I may add, we are seeing that the pandemic has increased our collective reliance on technology. And one lesson we have learned is that digital technology not only has the potential to create new jobs, but can actually boost productivity of existing jobs. As we look towards economic recovery in Africa, how can we enhance internet connectivity on our continent to assist our young ones, in particular, to leverage technology? Dr. Makhtar, please.
Thank you so much, Tony. It is fascinating to hear really my brothers talking about this issue. One of the things which strikes me is that when we are in face of danger, we have the right reaction to regroup, to get together, and go over that danger, immediate danger. What we are not good at is sustain our effort on the long run. And this is a different thing. And that's why our success, to my view, in our continent are patchy, because it's often a reaction to a big crisis which imposes us to survive. And therefore, we can gather and do what we have to do. But that, to my view, doesn't lead us, like President Kagame said, to the long run. It's like conflict. He mentioned conflict. You solve one conflict here, another one comes tomorrow, another one comes there. And at the end of the day, you are not able to move the overall project forward. So I think that one of our challenges is to move out from the reactive mode to a mode which is a much longer and sustained and consistent work about that. And I think everything that has been said are important. But I think that the more we will be able, first of all, to act collectively, to seek collective wisdom, because we all need the wisdom of each other to be able to drive and prepare the solution that will be presenting to the leaders to move our continent forward. So for me, this conversation, but transforming it in actions, is very important, where we bring different parts of the solution together to be able to address it. Secondly, we need to do more systematically document, systematize, and present what has made something a success. Why? Is it random? Is it by chance? Or was the consequence of a certain number of actions that we can repeat if we want? And highlighting those, to my view, could help us identifying specifically why we are not able to generalize that movement that will enable us to move. For instance, when I was once I had the chance to talk to President Kagame about digital. What he told me is, Makhtar, it's nice to have digital, but why don't you think about digital also as a way to do many things at the same time? Being more trade between countries, being more peace between countries because they will be exchanging more data, but also be able to enact there a real market. And I think this is those kind of things that we have, to my view, to do more systematically. Let's take this crisis. This crisis has told us a few things that we all highlighted. We don't have a health system which is solid in our continent. People are not being vaccinated. People are forgotten when there is a crisis. And it will happen again. Don't expect that things will change if there is another crisis. So what are the lessons that we are drawing from that? Let's build our systems. We sit together, have level of, and we will not be able to build a solid health system, a solid vaccine system, a solid pharmaceutical system if there is not a level of specialization. So we have before us a problem to solve, and moving from that and addressing it and learning how we can do that, for me, would be a good way, at least a small contribution to that conversation. We have here a level where we don't have enough of local value chain, of sub-regional value chain. We can build the value chain, and that will require a level of specialization between countries. And that, if we do that, the infrastructure and all these questions, for me, is the least complicated part of it. The most complicated part of it is to be able to, as President Kagame said, to set those goals, those targets, and be able to do that. There is no region, for instance, that in the digital world will not be competitive. By the end of the year, 100 terabytes of submarine cable will be coming to the continent. In a year and a half, another 180 terabytes will be coming. So 300 terabytes will be on the continent by the end of 2023. 30 times what we have today. So capacity will not be the problem anymore. It's us in the continent to do that. So I will not give you a list of what IFC is doing because that will be boring to you. But this is what, and when we started talking about it, this time I said to our teams, I don't want a trade financing facility which is looking at trading, helping African companies to trade with outside. I want a trade facility which helps trade within Africa. They told me financing companies. I said, yes, large companies can get money. What create jobs is MSMEs. What can we do for MSMEs? And it will be hard work, and we will be having obstacles, but we need to address them in the open as we go. Sorry if I was busy that long to my friends and to His Excellency President, but I just wanted to react to it and not just to give a list of what IFC is doing.
Exactly what we expect, Makhtar, and you're not disappointing me at all. And I like that new paradigm you bring to the IFC, not about trade with the rest of the world, but what can we do?
And sorry, Tony, I will not be off the hook, my brother, because now when we will have these things done, I will ask you to put money in it, as you are doing. So we will need to have all of us chipping in wherever we are. And I know that you will do it because you have shown in other sectors how you can do it. So these pharmaceutical and vaccine industries that we want to bring in the continent, we will need also our private sector in Africa to contribute.
Dr. Makhtar, my wife is a medical doctor, and just on Friday, I met with the ambassador of the Czech Republic to Nigeria, and we're just discussing what you said now about pharmaceuticals to see how she and her business can diversify into that. But you hit the nail, it's interesting. You're saying that the internet and the digital capability of infrastructure in Africa will improve. It's a question of how prepared are we to take advantage of that. We'll come back to that very soon. Mr. President, back to you. I know we are running short of time, but back to you. We've had 3 industrial revolutions, the first, second, third, and now the fourth. which is called the digital revolution. My question is, how do we position Africa to make sure that we do not miss out on the digital and technological revolution we see around us? And how do we leverage this to improve poverty reduction, social improvement in social welfare, and increase in productivity and prosperity in Africa?
We have understood for quite some time now how important these revolutions are. And we are witnessing the fourth industrial revolution, which everyone in the world talks about and talks about the benefits of it. Yeah, most of these things that have already been discussed and eloquently expressed by the previous colleagues, speakers who have just spoken. How do we make sure that they help us achieve, because the fourth industrial revolution cuts across sectors. Therefore, so how can we leverage it? I think Makhtar has also talked about that, and earlier, Madam Ngozi. So how, and we're talking about our young people, the youth, we are talking about connecting our countries, and be it the free trade area we have created, and then the industry itself being, part of a bigger market which people would benefit from. So the only way, again, comes back to the point. We should be busy finding ways we can make it productive for us and more meaningful, whether it is small industries, medium, big scale, or whether it is the movement of people, reducing on that, using more digital, whether it is in the process of accountability, whether it is in the process of governance, or, name it. And we have learned from this pandemic, when every aspect of life almost came to a halt, we were saved where things were saved by the application of the tools created by this fourth industrial revolution. There's no question about it. There is no home, there is no office, there is no country that did not actually benefit from this where it was applied, because that's what we were left with when everything else came to a halt, when there were lockdowns, when there were all kinds of things. So we have already tested the benefits to a great magnitude. And therefore, all we need to do is, we don't need even much preaching because we have already experienced it. We just need to do the practical things in terms of investments, in terms of making these tools born by the Industrial Revolution work for us in every sector. Whether it is we've seen how health systems have been served well by this. Again, just reminded by the tragedy of the pandemic we have faced. And the good thing is our young people, those who have been trained, those who have, been trying, the young entrepreneurs that we see have understood this, they have grasped it. So the government side needs to encourage, needs to invest. And then I think the industries, the private sector, the young people should be able to do what they know best and want to do, that really helps bring to the forefront this fourth industrial revolution it's not just a concept, it's not just, it should be real. It should be working for us because we have seen how it works and the benefits of it.
This kind of, Mr. President, thank you. With this kind of panelists, ideally we should have like 2-3 hours to trash all the issues. But we do know that you're global citizens. You're no longer African citizens, you're global citizens, and the demand for your time is highly, highly, highly competitive. We have so many more. I have a lot more questions to ask, but we need to take at least 5 minutes of conversations with our audience. But before then, let me say that looking at this panel, I see a new dawn, a new hope for our continent. Turning to our audience, particularly to the young entrepreneurs listening across our continent, what is your personal message to them? What was the catalyst for your success? You all are extremely successful, from public sector, private sector, all of you on this panel. We need to motivate and inspire our young ones. What would you pass on to them through this platform and forum? They need to live here, further inspired, charged, and say, if Dr. Tedros could get to WHO as head, if Dr. Okonjo-Iweala could get to World Trade Organization as head, if Makhtar Diop could get to the IFC as the CEO, and of course, our dear darling President Kagame as the President of Rwanda, what should they live here with? What inspiration should they get? What would they say? What would you like to share with them that help to catalyze your achievements? Let's talk about it, then we'll open it up and take a few comments from the audience, please. Let's start with Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, please.
Thank you so much. And I may have to disappear, but let me just say to our young people that you should always don't let anything stop your imagination and your willingness to try things. Be a little risk taker. Don't be so risk averse. Many people are risk averse in life and they never want to try anything new. When I went for this WTO DG job, it was a risk. There were 8 of us. I could easily not have made it. And I know I spoke to some people who said to me, oh my God, how could you take that risk? Suppose you didn't make it in the eyes of the whole world. I said, well, if I didn't, so be it. But this is something I wanted to do. I took a risk. I had a lot of support from our leaders and from my country and my president, and it worked. So take a bit of risk to do something you feel passionate about. Always do something that you wake up in the morning wanting to go to work. I always share with people, if I don't feel 70% of the time like getting out of bed and going to work, then I know I'm doing the wrong thing. So I'll leave it there.
Dr. Tedros, please.
Thank you so much. I think I wouldn't see where we are now as to give advice to the young people. Very few people can get there, can get in high positions. But what's important for all of us, we can be anywhere we want. And for the youth, what's important is, their mindset to serve their community, to serve humanity. I think that should inspire them. That's what I believe. And Africa needs a lot of support from its own citizens. So to be ready to contribute whatever they can in good faith wherever they are. And I'm sure that will take them to wherever they will actually enjoy. So that's the most important. And for that, I think it's always important to check their mindset. I have a friend, maybe you know him, Dr. Mike Ryan. His daughter came to visit her father from Ireland, and she visited me too, and we had exchange, a few minutes. And she was asking me the same question, some advice for her. And then we spoke about many things, and her boyfriend was also with her. Then after they left, after several months, they sent me 2 cups, what do you call it, this teacup, with one of them written, mindset is everything, and the other one written on it, be kind. And they told me that these were the 2 things they remember from our discussion with them. So for anything, I mean, to happen, having the right mindset is key. And one of the mindsets which I always respect is serving your community in good faith. That mindset can take you anywhere. And of course, with kindness and in good faith. And we need to be kind to each other. But at the same time, just one more thing is, candor is central in this. And I'm really glad what President Kagame said. I think our leaders should sit down and discuss candidly on how this pandemic was led and how the whole continent responded. Learn from the mistakes. Of course, as Ngozi said, I fully agree. There was cooperation, which we haven't seen in other regions. But still, there were several problems. There are still problems. And candid discussion will be very, very important. But the youth should be part of it. And candor would help the youth really in its life. Those who are candid actually lead a healthy life also. So that's what I would like to say. Listening to communities, serving the community is the start. The rest is additional. But what matters for our continent and for any individual young person in Africa is to really contribute its best to change our continent. That should be the commitment. And we have the Vision 2063. The youth should make a difference on that. Thank you. Sorry, I took a lot of time.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. I know Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, she did say she has an event. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, good to have you. There was a question, though, from the audience for you. I don't know if you have 30 seconds to address that question, that we can let you go, then we'll continue. Should I ask the question? Okay. It's gone. Okay. So let's... okay, so quick one. It says, what program will World Trade Organization roll out for SMEs in Sub-Saharan Africa to enable startups scale quickly to meet up with the demand posed by COVID-19?
Well, thank you very much. Very quickly, we have a group here discussing how to improve digital. We know that from this COVID-19, e-commerce has been very, very utilized by small SMEs in order to access markets. So what we are discussing actually is how can we help scale this so that SMEs can benefit more from the digital economy. That's the way our mindset. So we are looking at what to do practically in order to address this, but also with rules to underpin trade. And on practically, we have the International Trade Center, which has a program for helping SMEs upgrade the quality of their products. So we are trying to get more resources to scale that up and then work on the digital aspects.
No, I think that is good. Thank you so much. Tomachi Chris Asaluka, Director of Partnership, will get in touch with the World Trade Organization to see how we can flesh this out further. Thanks so much, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala.
Thank you. And I apologize to His Excellency and my brothers. Sorry to disappear. Okay. And to the audience. Sorry.
So, Mr. Makhtar, before His Excellency, please. Makhtar, please.
This is always for me the hardest question, how to advise people, because I don't think that I have something to advise people. But let me say what I think about that topic. We are not exceptional. I am not exceptional. I am one of the million of Africans who could have been where I am today. And I think this is very important to repeat to the rest of the world. Whenever I'm in a situation, I have been asked questions about how exceptional you are, why you are here, what made you so special for being here. I'm not sure that if it was someone from another continent, that question would be asked to that person. So this is my first answer. There are millions of Africans who could do what I'm doing since they were given the opportunity. Second, don't let anybody set your limits. It's valid for you as an individual. This is valid for our countries. This is valid for a lot of things. These things is good for this part of the world, for this country, but for you, it's not good enough. It's good for this person living in a city, but you in a village, you have not that right. Never accept someone to limit your aspiration. Third, individual success has only a meaning if it's part of a collective success. Individual success is only valid if it's part of a collective success. We are here to serve our people, and we can serve our people the best if we work together and have the wisdom of listening and learning from others. Last thing, try to know that you don't know a lot. I don't know a lot. I'm learning every day, including from the youth. So speak to me, speak to us, teach us, because it's not a one-way exercise. We have a lot to learn from you. That's the only thing I can say.
Your humility is totally disarming. To say that you rose to that office and yet you don't think you have something to offer is height of your humility. You know, thanks for. And you did say I've written down here. You said don't let someone limit your aspirations, and also individual success is not enough. It's collective success, and that is all we need in Africa to make progress. Let's go to our dear President Kagame. President Kagame, please let me throw in a question from the audience so you can take both together. And it says, President Kagame, you are famed for your speeches calling for a reimagined relationship between Africa and the rest of the world. What must this 21st century relationship of mutual respect look like? Over to you, Mr. President.
Start with the first one by saying each one, for the young people, start with yourselves individually and say, what do I want in life? What do I want to do? As you grow up, as many young people go to school, get education, there are other things they get involved in, rightly so, as a matter of their rights. Because then, therefore, there is something you must give to yourself that builds you up to the level you want, or that will probably, in the end, see you successful in life. Because even if you want to help others, which is always going to be the best thing if you can extend your capacities and what you have to others, you must have something. You can't give what you don't have. So you must build something that you'll be able to give, but will also serve you. The second, the others can only give you so much. They will not give you whatever you want. Maybe it shouldn't even be the case. So that brings the burden to you. You challenge yourself, the young people, and say, don't expect too much from others, because even others, even if they gave you anything, they can only give you so much. So, and this is how people, individuals from their youth will build up themselves and build capacities to serve themselves well and to serve others well. So this must be, again, a case of mindset. This must be driving the young people. I wish they would be driven by that. Now, and I'm saying this generally. It's not about me. I'm not telling you about my life experience. I'm just, well, that's part of it naturally, but I'm more talking about this experience, but also more the philosophy, the thinking of how an individual develops and how they can be helpful to others. And we need that in Africa, maybe more than anywhere else. So with that sense that you are capable, that you can be capable of doing things is very important, is central. And then working with others is key as well. Now, in fact, from that question, then I answer the second. I don't make these speeches for the sake of it. It's my conviction, it's my belief. I believe that, and I think there are many who believe that or believed that even before me. The mutual respect that is needed. I'm even surprised that it should raise questions. So I take it for granted. That's the way it should be, the mutual respect. Why doesn't Africa, why don't Africans or even these young people, why don't they deserve respect? Like others do deserve that. I think mutual respect is the best form of relationship. We talk about problems of Africa, deprivation, poverty, and this and that. No, it shouldn't be about us. This is not our identity.
Wow.
We are just there because we happen to be there, whether it was mistakes by ourselves or by others or a combination of both. But that's not where we should be. This is not us. This is not how so we must get out of this. And by that, there are interactions that have to be entered into with other parts of the world, with other people, and you respect them, so must they respect us. There's no question about it. The fact that somebody is poor does not take away the respect, the dignity that people want. And that's why in the speeches, I know sometimes it falls on deaf ears. There are those who have made it their way of life to disrespect others, especially to disrespect our continent. But the worst comes when, even within the continent, we may not have that full respect for each other, but that's another thing. But anyway, it is just bad manners. It is not productive. Why would you disrespect anyone? So the speeches come from experience, from what I see, what I have been in myself as an African, as a Rwandan, as we have our own history, our own tragic one for that matter. We have our own constraints as a country, even the location, the size. So we have both geographical and historical problems of history and problems of geography. But we must overcome them. And we must overcome them by our own efforts, but also by the efforts of cooperation and cooperating with others. And that maintains therefore our level of self-respect as we respect others as well.
Great.
So that's what I have for you. And I shouldn't forget to wish everyone a very happy Africa Day, because this is what it was. And again, it shouldn't just be something that passes. It should be something that causes us to pause and reflect and say, tomorrow, next year, Africa can be a better place. Africans can do better and more, and young people can grow better as well.
Great, Mr. President, thanks. You say poverty is not our identity as a continent, and all of us here agree totally with that. Totally. Poverty is not our identity, and that's why we're extremely proud of each and every one of you. Do your own things in your own sectors and spaces to help uplift Africa, especially our young ones, to whom the future of Africa indeed belongs to. I wish we had more time, but it's 1:21 p.m. already. And next year, maybe we'll do 1.5 hours and not be too ambitious to say 1 hour. Let's begin to wrap up. I want to thank our panelists for taking time out of running countries and multilateral organizations to join us today. I want to thank you all for your insights, the great insight you have shared today. What a powerful conversation. Thank you collectively. And I believe the journey for a greater, more prosperous Africa has begun. To our panelists and viewers, on behalf of the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of UBA Group, Mr. Kennedy Uzoka, and the entire UBA world, I want to thank you for joining us at the UBA Africa Day Conversations 2021. We look forward to seeing you all again next year. To our panelists, we indeed are very grateful you make the time out for this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.